Hello and welcome to the Live, Love, Laugh Lives with myself, Cheryl Chapman, where I'm joined by entrepreneurial, amazing aperial, you name it preneurial, enlightened souls who are sharing how they live their life, how they do what they love, and of course along the way we might have a few laughs. Today I'm introducing an amazing, incredible soul. She is just unbelievable. You will know that. You don't need me to tell you. By the time we finish this interview, you will be clapping your hands and whooping and hollering with joy that you have met her. So today I'm going to ask her to introduce herself, and you are, drum roll.
Thanks, Cheryl. Manmeet Kaur Chowdhry.
And what if there was a title? I know sometimes we don't like labels and things, but if there was a title, how would you describe what you do?
A woman on a mission.
Oh, I loving it. Yes, a woman on a mission.
Yes.
And so what do you do? Tell the viewers what you do.
I help people overcome emotional blocks that are holding them back from living an optimum life. And by living an optimum life, all I really mean is having a more balanced life through inspiring relationships, be it personal, professional, or, as we know, the most important one, with yourself.
Yeah, cool. And I heard you talk recently, you were talking about something called priorities, which when we first met, well, I mean, we'd met, but we kind of spent a bit of time together. I was like, ooh, I'm liking the sound of this. So tell people what you think about, what is it about priorities that makes it so different from what other people teach?
You know, priorities is based around this study, which is done by the Greeks, called axiology. I perceive it's the most important ology there is to understanding yourself, but actually it's the least studied. So when I thought I'd got, like, you know, let alone gold mine, it was a platinum mine, you know, when I was like, oh my God, I understand where I operate from, where other people operate from, why I make certain decisions in my life, where I'm making my emotions from. And it was just like, wow, this is the crux of all human behavior. And I was like, why is this not being shared as much, you know, to people? Because people are trying to, as you know, find themselves. They're trying to make meaning around life and how they're operating. And I think that that's so important. That's the one piece of my work I love teaching, because people's light bulbs are just on, you know, like, oh, they make this connection, they make that connection, and it just clicks.
Yeah. And I know that you said that a lot of people often get confused with values and, you know, they come out with, you know, integrity and stuff like that, don't they? But this is something completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sometimes referred to as values, but basically, you know, I wanted to make that distinction because sometimes people get that mixed up and they think, oh, well, what's my values? I'm looking for somebody who's got similar values, kind of thing. And when we look at the values, there, you know, if I was to say to you, you know, what are your values in life? You're going to say honesty, integrity, those kind of things. But if I say what's your priorities, you're definitely going to say, you know, helping people, inspire people to get their message out there, you know, and encourage women, encourage women to, you know, step up and things. So that's very different to saying, well, what's your values? So I wanted to make that distinction so people understand, because I still do use values, but if I used it without that, you know, precursor of this is what I mean priorities, because what I am talking about is what you value most.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because, like you said, once you know what your value is, once you know what your priority is, then you can start to see, because I know, you know, we did a little bit of work together and you were pointing me in the right direction. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's why when my husband says he's going to Israel for 10 years, everyone's like, what? Your husband? And I'm going, well, yeah, that's what he needs to do, because actually our priorities are really well aligned. And I understand that. Now, if my priority was family and connection, and he's off to Israel, I'd probably be like, what the fuck's going on here? Thank you very much. Do you know what I mean? And so it's really, really cool. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I think, you see, it's a very typical thing when you're definitely not a stay-home woman, right? But there are people out there, I mean, I'm sure there's some people listening in now that, you know, stay-home moms, or they're the business one and the partner's the one that's out. And what happens is, you just said the perfect word, is where our priorities are aligned. And what that really, you know, what I'm getting means is I see him going to Israel helps me in my mission and my purpose. You know, whereas people are going, why is he spending so much time at work? And why is he not spending enough time with the kids or coming to the family functions? And it's not just happening in partners, you know, it happened in my family as well, you know, because obviously being a woman in business, and it's like, hang on a minute, you're missing out on family weddings, family functions, and, you know, being Indian, how many we have of those, right?
So, you have the longest weddings ever, they're fabulous.
Yeah, but, you know, when my mum and my dad understood this work, it became just more fluent, you know, like we started getting wedding invitations. My mum would pick up the wedding invitations. Instead of going, you should be coming to this, it became, oh, here's the date. Have you got a workshop on? Or are you doing anything? Because we need to RSVP them. And then I said, and when I would say, yeah, I've got a workshop, and they go, oh, that's okay. And then they'll go, Manmeet's not coming. And she goes, no, she has a higher priority on doing her workshop.
Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. So they're speaking your language as well.
So
and they
yeah,
understand,
it just makes it so fluid to understand that actually. But, you know, the biggest thing here is, if your husband was going away and you didn't see that it served you, and then he wasn't able to communicate that to you in your priorities, you're going to have a breakdown. So my mum also started to know that. And, you know, she was like, well, at this wedding, there are going to be some nice looking men. Either that would have worked at that time. Alternatively, she'll go, you know, there are some people who are really interested in your work, and I think you might be able to help them, and I want you to network with them while they're there, and I'll introduce you them. You see, now I see actually going to the wedding serves me. And it's not to say that, you know, all my family are not a priority. They are. They're just like in my ranking order, they're lower down. But that just frees you up from thinking, oh my God, I should be going there, and what are people going to think? And just, you know, being free from understanding, these are my priorities. That's where I'm making my decisions from, you know.
I love it because you can start to answer questions, and you can say yes to those things you want to do, and no without feeling guilty.
Yes.
The old G word, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did this start for you? Because obviously you didn't come out of the, well, I don't know, maybe you did come out of the room with this as being your intention, but maybe a few things got in the way, and then you had to find yourself again. So how did you get on this path?
I got on the transformation path. I think, you know, when you're younger, you play out these little roles that kind of get you there. I was the Agni aunt, you know, within the Friends. As I grew older, I actually had a role in a termination clinic, but I was part of the, you know, you'd counsel them to find out if this is the right decision for them. So I was kind of playing out that role, not knowing, you know, and as a part of the job. Yeah. So, and then of course, when I started going through some of my own challenges, you know, I went through some family challenges in terms of my communication with my mum. My mum was like probably the most challenging person at the time. And I was like, I just can't get on with her no matter how many, you know, seminars I was doing and how much I was trying to just think positive about what she's doing. It just wasn't happening. Which then resulted obviously in health challenges. I was having challenges then at work as well. And it's like, you know, issuesgalore.com, you know. And then I came across my mentor and teacher, Dr Demartini. And that really is what changed my path and my trajectory of wanting to help people understand. I think this $1 trillion industry of positive thinking, where it's the very thing I was trying to do, but it became the very thing that put me into depression, you know, and wanting to end my life. So getting like really down there, and then seeing that actually the reason for that was just a part of my thinking, and comparing my current reality of how I think life should be to this fantasy. It just hit me. And, you know, obviously when Dr. John Demartini was explaining what depression is, and I was like, gosh, that just makes so much sense, you know. And then I decided to go on that path. But, you know, I was a firm believer that you don't try and put other people's oxygen mask on before you put your own. Yeah. So I did spend a lot of time, you know, working on myself and really understanding it, you know, the methodology. I had a lot of, you know, past traumas kind of thing to work through, and I needed to do that in order to be authentic, to be able to help other people through. Because you see, if I couldn't see the hidden order in my apparent chaos in the past, how could I help anybody else to see it?
So I love the fact that you did this, you went through, you know, the trenches, if you like, and then you came out the other end, and you became just one person in Europe, didn't you, for Dr. John?
Yeah, no, there were other facilitators, but currently now it's obviously different rankings, and so I'm the only senior facilitator in Europe. Yeah.
And what happens when you've been through something like that yourself, and then obviously there's new people coming in and you're facilitating, you're supporting and helping your mentor. I always believe some people come in so you can help them, so they can help you. I think in this case it's a bit like, it's a bit of both really.
Oh yeah.
Because what was happening when people were coming in, because Dr. John Demartini, I mean, I love like your description of the haircut.
It's so distinct, isn't it?
Yeah, you recognise him straight away. And I remember first seeing him in The Secret, and I was thinking he looks a little bit like, I don't know if you're old enough, but a young Mickey Delaney from the Monkees.
Oh,
Like the same sort of haircut.
Yeah.
But they kind of speak a language, don't they, where you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about to begin with. So how do you help, the new people that come in?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, when we're talking about priorities and values, whatever we perceive most missing in our life becomes what we most value in our life. And so for him, it's been this, because he was told he would never read, write or become anything and was dyslexic. So his value now of, really talking complex, but it's, he's read over 30,000 books. So, everything's just kind of stored there. And for me, I would say that my understanding as well is I like things maybe sometimes a little bit more visual, but really broken down simply. So as I was going through, learning with him and then doing my facilitation courses, I found people were coming to me and, saying, you've clearly been here for a while. Can you explain this to me? And they still wouldn't get it when I would just say it in words. But when I sometimes would draw things and then I would change my words around, still keeping in alignment with how Dr. John Demartini would like us to teach it, they were getting it. And when they got it, that means that they were working through the methodology, which I know is such a high value for Dr. John Demartini, that that's what inspired me to create a pathway to help people get the foundations and understand things in a simple way, to basically get the most out of working with him, if and when they choose to do that. And then I also work with people who may go to him first and do the breakthrough experience and, do work with him and then come and work with me afterwards to keep their learning maintenance, I like to call it, So Dr. John Demartini's kind of seen my content of what I teach, and in his words, this is a great pathway to me and a great refresher for the students as well. So. I complement the work, and I see how I encourage people as well. Like, it's great to experience it from him, but there are certain things that need to be in place to get the most out of it. Yeah.
That makes sense. And so what kind of people do you help? Could you give us some examples? Obviously, it'll be confidentiality, so we don't want to name people, but, in terms of the types of people that come to you, what type of people come to you? What kind of issues do they have?
Yeah, they tend to be professionals and entrepreneurs, and men and women. It's really interesting. I think we were talking about, maybe I should niche down. And then I go, let me go niche down to women. And then suddenly a whole burge of men come. So you're like, no, clearly the universe is saying no. Yeah, and the issues really do, differ from person to person. But they tend to be around personal, professional relationships. In a professional relationship, it's either business partners, wanting to be aligned in their priorities so that they're going forward with things. Alternatively, it's team issues, trying to inspire the team, and they keep calling in, motivational people to come in and try and motivate the team, and the sales are down. I come from a sales background myself, but when I knew that my sales, I'd be number one saleswoman in all my roles, and then they just went right down. And that had nothing to do with me not understanding how to sell. It was just personal stuff that was going in. So I work with teams as well, like helping them clear things that are going on that are distracting them from work as well. And then also with the entrepreneurs and personal relationships, of course, anything to do with, not being able to have an inspiring relationship with a loved one, losing a loved one, losing money, losing business, anything that really makes a relationship, be it with yourself or anybody else, emotional. Yeah. Whenever we're in emotional reaction, there's an opportunity there for me to serve. Yeah, I mean, the Demartini method has over 1,000 uses. Wow. So, but the things I love doing is really like seeing, people create and sustain loving relationships. I kind of say this to some people. I say, I'd love to have my clients have loving relationships and be connected at the heart no matter where they are in the world. And that doesn't mean the romantic kind of heart. I mean, like, even if you're in a business, you want to be connected with your team that you're leaving behind, and be able to connect with them and communicate from a loving space, rather than this, hierarchy of, my priorities are more important than yours, and you got to do what I'm saying in that space.
Lovely. And if I said to you, why do you do what you do? Because obviously we're talking about, being wise women. There are wise men as well, don't panic. We have a man cave for the men. But in terms of, being a wise woman, why do you do what you do? What's your purpose?
You see, this is the thing about where I've come from. I really feel and strongly about, people don't have to live in this illusion of a one-sided life and trying to chase this, positive thinking side of things. Buddha said the source of all human suffering is trying to obtain what's unobtainable, this positive life, and trying to avoid what's unavoidable, this negative life. And I do perceive there are a lot of humans out there that are chasing that, and it's causing a lot of suffering, and that is my why, to help people realize there's another way of thinking, how to bring things into balance so that they can get out of this emotional reaction, whether it be positive or negative thinking, and just get back into action and keep, focused on their mission. Because I think everybody has a, innate desire to make a difference in the world. But there are all these other things that come in, even the limiting beliefs. There are all things that, people are imposing on themselves and injecting according to other priorities, Yeah.
And I always ask my guests to bring something that's either special or sentimental. What did you bring along today?
So, what I brought along is what I wear. And this is a meteorite.
Oh,
and I was given this. It's all like little cage there.
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
But it's a little...
Is it quite heavy then?
Yeah, I mean, you can just lift it.
Oh, yeah, it is actually. It's like a little bullet, isn't it?
It feels like a little bullet, yeah. I was given this recently, actually. So if you'd asked me maybe 6-7 months ago, bring something, it would have been something else. But this has become quite special for me. It was given as a gift for my birthday, which was on February 19th. And it was given to me by a special friend of mine, but when it came and I perceived it was my mum. So, because we know meteorite is a shooting star, part of a shooting star. So my mum transcended the physical world on the 18th of February this year, so a day before my birthday. And so when this came, I was just like, oh, mum's here now in another form. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people obviously go through loss, whether or not that be loss of money, status, could do all that, but a loss of a human, I mean, animals as well. I have literally, been devastated when an animal's died, but obviously losing your mum is a big, a big life happening, I suppose, isn't it? And I know that when we were talking, you were saying how people are really surprised, that you can talk about mum. I mean, I saw a lovely little video that you did of mum's funeral. And so is that because of the methods that you'd learned about this balance that allows you to, just tell me a bit about it, because it's difficult for people to understand, isn't it?
To understand, yeah, it is. I think people... when we look at grief, it's something that's inevitable, and losing a loved one is a guaranteed. We're going to lose our parent at some point in our life, and that's a given. But then we also, like you said, animals. Like I've worked with people who they really have been, devastated and not being able to function because they've lost an animal. But that animal is everything to them. So I don't want to differentiate that it's just an animal or a human. It's just, any loss. And I definitely say that I would not, I mean, we're in a few months down the line now from my mum passing. I would not be functioning, sitting here talking to you, if it wasn't for the methods that I had learned and, understanding. And I had the pleasure and pain, of course, of my mum, going through the loss process when she lost her mum. So when I lost my grandma, but my mum was 5 years old when she lost her mum. So for 60 years, she grieved her mum, and she couldn't talk about it without crying. But when she went through the method, it was in 2017, and she sat me down, when she came back from, just having the realization of understanding how the method worked. And she just said, I want you to promise me one thing. Whenever I die, you have to do this method on me, because I don't want you to miss me, and I want you to feel my presence around you all the time. So I was like, I'm doing it in the honor of her, because I think, you know, I mean, if I was to ask you, you know, the viewers, when you die, how do you want people to be after you leave? Do you want them to grieve you and sit around and not function, or, you know, do you want them to get on with their life? And a lot of people, you know, 100% of the time, they want you to get on with their life, you know.
I want flowers and I want funeral, just so you know. and a tombstone. And if you can come every week and put flowers, no, I'm joking.
Yeah, so you know, I think with that, the grief side of things, it's like we assume grief is all sad, and we assume birth is all good. But you just spend like 24 hours with a mother who's just given birth, and she'll give you the other side of that. Yeah, sure. You know, and it's very similar to, you know, within the grief, you start to see different things. You see transformation. The process that I use is all based on what I really perceive as the most important universal law that there is to ever learn, and that's the law of, it's called either law of transformation sometimes, it's called law of nothing is missing, law of one and many. And that's really just like understanding how, you know, you can have a block of ice, you melt it, it becomes, you know, water, you heat it up, it becomes condensation, but that's still the same water that's just changing form. And that's really what's happening to you know, us, is when the physical part is gone, the soul still remains, but just disperses into these individuals. And, you know, sometimes I've heard people around me say certain things that my mum would say, and they go, I don't know why I just said that, but I'm go, that's mum, that's why. Yeah, and I'll just say, yeah, there's mum, that's why, you know. And even when we were together recently, you know, you would say certain things, or you'd hug me like mum, and I'd be like, oh, there's mum. And coming even, you know, for the interview this morning, it's just like certain religious songs came on the radio, but I was listening and I was like, oh, I get it, mum, you're with me, you know. And I was like, okay, I'm going for this, you know. So it's just being able to recognize that, and recognize that it's in the perfect form as well, which is not so easy to see, but if we ask the right quality questions, then it becomes much easier to see. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. So, of course, if anybody's out there and they are going through loss, then obviously, Manmeet, they can contact you. We'll put some links, you know, underneath the interview. And, of course, you're going to be part of the Wise Words Be Seen, Be Heard, Be You, yay! So you'll be able to get a copy of the book and be able to read this interview, and also find out more where to find you. So, Manmeet, thank you so much for coming up north for your interview, all the way from down south, can you believe it? And thank you so much for bringing, you know, such an amazing mission to help people to, you know, really get the balance back into their life.
Thank you so much, and it's been really inspiring being here, and thank you for another opportunity to share my message.
You're very, very welcome. So thank you from myself and Manmeet. We look forward to seeing you soon, but of course, in the meantime, remember to live, love and laugh every day. See you soon. Bye-bye.